All right, game number 2 that you as 49er fans really should have been paying attention to this weekend. Game number 1 was Packers versus the Eagles, and then game number 2 was Lions versus the Rams. Now, if you saw the first video that I put out about the Packers and the Eagles, you will know that I was not very impressed with either of those teams. I came away from tonight's game feeling much, much different than I did in that Friday night game. Now, I want to preface all this by saying, once again, it is only week 1. There is so much that is going to happen this season. It is impossible to make definitive statements after just one game, but I want to give my feelings in the moment about these teams, much like I did with the Packers and the Eagles. All right, let's start with the Los Angeles Rams. First of all, no secret, most of you know that I believe Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC. I don't know that it's particularly close. And I think that when you have a Matthew Stafford, even though so many things are going wrong with a team, he was able to keep them in it, fought through it with grit, hurt his ankle early, entered the game without his starting right tackle, entered the game without his starting left tackle, lost his backup left tackle, and lost his starting left guard. So basically a whole rework of the offensive line game 1, not ideal. Not only that, but he lost Puka Nacua very, very early. So Matthew Stafford does what Matthew Stafford does, keeps him in the game, gunslinger like crazy. Yes, he threw some questionable balls. This is what he does, but he also throws some unbelievable dimes. And tonight, it wasn't enough to get them over the top, but it was enough to push them into overtime and make a nice little comeback. I also want to say this about the Rams. Make sure that you show some love to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Right now, they are giving a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 and a free pick when you use my promo code. Link is in the description. Promo code LSS. You can play yearly fantasy, weekly fantasy, daily fantasy. You can play more or less, whatever it is that you want to do. They've got you covered. Showing love to Underdog Fantasy is showing love to the channel. Thank you, Underdog, as always, for being a great sponsor. Let's get back to the video. Even though they didn't have their starting offensive line and they didn't have Puka Nacua, they were able to make some things work late. But I also want to say this defense, my bold prediction for this defense was it was going to be better this year than it was last year. Even though they don't have Aaron Donald, I felt like they just spent so much in the draft trying to improve. Now, the corner position is going to be a little iffy. It's going to be a little bit shaky. They lost one of their starting corners before the season even started. Also, Tre'Davious White got cooked very, very early in this game. Looks like they sat him out towards the tail end. The kid that came in and backed up for him looked actually pretty good. And maybe they go sign Witherspoon, who was a starter for them last year. I believe he's still out there on the open market. We will see what they end up doing long term. Their safety position's gotten better. Their linebackers actually looked pretty good. And their defensive line is good. I mean, they spent multiple picks there over the last couple of years. I believe 4 higher picks in the last 2 drafts. And it shows. It definitely shows. The Rams, I don't think, are going anywhere unless they just can't stay healthy. Listen, if they continue to lose players at an astronomical rate, you can only do so much. I don't care how good Matthew Stafford is. But if Puka Nacua can come back, knowing their offensive linemen should be back soon as well, at least their starting left tackle, I believe they will hang around. They're going to be a tough out for anybody this year. Now, my prediction for them was 10 wins. A lot of that was because they were coming into the season with injuries. We saw more. I still feel good about 10 wins, but I believe they can sneak into the playoffs, and most teams are not going to want to face a Matthew Stafford-led team. They're just not. All right, let's shift to the Detroit Lions. A couple things. DJ Reader did not play tonight. He was their big free agent pickup up the middle, but they were able to play much, much better defense this year than what we'd seen from a lot of them last year. That is thanks to an upgraded secondary. Now, they were upgraded on paper, but we didn't know necessarily how upgraded they would be when it actually came to playing. Now, Terrion Arnold got a couple penalties. He's a rookie, but also Terrion Arnold made some big plays on that final third down when they were trying to get the ball back to send it in overtime. Terrion Arnold was one-on-one with Cooper Kupp and held his own. They were able to get an incomplete pass there, get the ball, go down, kick the field goal, and then eventually win in overtime. So I think that young secondary is going to only improve as the year goes along, but they definitely have some good interchangeable pieces. And then Reader, most likely going to be back week 2, week 3, from what it sounds like. He is a gigantic addition along that defensive line. But I want to talk about the offense. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't play a lot in this game, at least not early. We know he had the injury in the preseason, and it looked like they were just trying to ease him into things. The more he plays, the better they are. I think pretty much everybody knows that. But Jameson Williams, my gosh, he was a top tier wide receiver talent coming out of the draft just a few short years ago out of Alabama. He came in with a serious injury. I believe it was a torn ACL, was never right his rookie year. Last year was suspended because of the gambling thing. Just never got on track. But man, he is starting to come into his own, and he brings an element that this team has not had, a major speed element. So as this season goes along, if he can continue to develop and stay healthy, that is a dynamic player that they've got now moving forward. And then the way they were able to win in overtime, we know that the offensive line is very, very good, but they just absolutely dominated, imposed their will, played bully ball down the stretch. It was a unbelievable sight. The Detroit Lions are going to hang around this year. We expected that they would be the number 1 contender for the 49ers. I would say after week 1, seeing all the teams across the NFC, yeah, I agree. The Detroit Lions are for real. Now, Jared Goff is still Jared Goff. He a little bit shaky when people get near him, when he has some players that are blitzing him freely and what have you. But he's good enough, especially when he's being protected. And it is not easy to get past this offensive line. But anytime you can just line them up, run the ball, a team knows you're going to run the ball and they cannot stop it, that is something special. We've seen the 49ers do it for many, many years at times. The Detroit Lions with that offensive line, those 2 running backs, they're always going to be tough to beat. So yeah, I think these 2 teams, if I'm just judging, I would take these 2 teams easily over those teams that we saw on Friday. And I believe that both of these teams are legit teams, barring health, of course. We'll see how it plays out. But that's how I saw the game between these 2. Tell me your thoughts. In the Niners play tomorrow night. Finally, the wait is over. Cannot wait to see it.